it's honestly odd to review a Zack and Cody episode where it's mainly about Cody becoming Tyresha in a pageant competition, all because he's in love with that person who is in that competition and doesn't appeal for the rest of the series. This is one of the first episodes from the show, yeah, but compared to what I see these characters do in the later seasons, I honestly think that this episode is mostly forgotten about. But then again, Zack and Cody, back in 2005, where it's new, they had to start somewhere just like everyone else. And when I mean everyone else, I mean like every other sitcom on this planet. Zack and Cody realize that there's a beauty pageant going on with tons of talented girls arriving at the Tipton Hotel. And Cody encounters Rebecca, played by Victoria Justice, the same actor who played Tori in Victorious, to which he instantly has a crush on her, mainly the fact it's love at first sight. But then again, these are children we're talking about. He wants to give Rebecca flowers, but unfortunately, he got himself into a situation that people think that he is actually Tyresha because she put a wig on along with wearing an outfit, a girl's outfit, and people are mistaking her as a girl instead of a boy. So the entire plot of this episode is Cody just wants to hang out with Rebecca, but unfortunately, due to the fact that the contest is worth $2,000, his brother Zack demands him to stay in the competition. Mainly the fact that they really need new bicycles because the old bikes aren't really that good. And that's really all I have to say about this episode in general. Granted, this episode isn't really one of the most interesting sitcom episodes I've seen, considering that this is children we're looking at, but in all honesty, that doesn't mean it's totally bad. I honestly think that this episode alone is probably one of my favorite episodes, even for an episode that came from the first season, not to mention one of the first episodes. For the majority of this episode, Cody being dressed as Tyresha just to talk to Rebecca is honestly a difficult task. I mean, if you ever see an episode from a cartoon or sitcom that had this cliche, then you're probably aware of what this storyline is going to go to. Granted, there are other ways that people dressed up as girls in different kinds of situations in other episodes that I did see before, but unlike in those episodes, I honestly think that this episode actually gave a purpose when it comes to Cody dressing up as a girl. Because unlike in other episodes where they had to follow the plot, this plot actually makes you sympathize with Cody and the fact that he's a different twin compared to his twin brother, Zack. Now, I completely understand that this is mostly a Drake and Josh knockoff when it comes to a brother being intelligent and respectful while the other is the complete opposite. But the thing is, despite this being a year after Drake and Josh premiered on Nickelodeon, while this premiered in Disney Channel, I honestly have nothing against it. For one, it's not a complete Drake and Josh rip-off because, for one, they actually made some tweaks when it comes to the characters. Like Cody getting into trouble with Zack, which is similar to what Drake did to Josh in Drake and Josh. However, some of the episodes, when it comes to the amount of episodes in the show, they don't do the same format constantly. And not to mention that there's no version of Megan in the show whatsoever. So whenever I completely see Zack and Cody get into these situations, it's mostly understandable because they're really, really long compared to how old Drake Bell and Josh Peck were once they were filming the first season of Drake and Josh. Even if I don't watch this show as much as Drake and Josh, and the fact that this show, along with On Deck, has the most episodes than Drake and Josh, that doesn't mean I really think that this show deserves the hate. Because unlike in Hannah Montana, which I can understand where the hate is coming from, this was the second time where Disney Channel is trying to make a sitcom just like That's So Raven, because we like That's So Raven, and this is the second sitcom that they did when it comes to a laugh track, along with characters getting into wacky situations. And before you ask, yes, I am aware that there's at least one sitcom that came out before That's So Raven, but I don't watch that. Like I said, I don't keep up with every show from every other network. It's just something that people need to understand. So what do I actually enjoy from this episode? Well, when Cody or Tywisha gets into a slumber party with the other girls, he isn't fully aware of the fact that all the other girls are completely different than him because they want to be supermodels and completely do everything what a girl usually does. Well, not really every girl, but when it comes to their age, that's what they think what a girl can do when it comes to them getting older, but they were too young to understand. And there's a joke, well, Cody wants to be a hockey player, and then people, mainly the girls, are completely confused by his answer, or her. And to be quite honest, that's pretty much a stereotype of what they do in this show. And in all honesty, even if I do not like stereotypes that much, this show doesn't go way too far with it, because it's mainly boy and girl stereotypes, and that's basically it. My point is that I think that what this episode does when it comes to Cody getting into a situation where he wants to hang out with Rebecca, but unfortunately he can't get out of it because he's in a pageant competition, you can really tell the stress that he's dealing with. So let's go talk about the subplot of this episode, and the subplot is Zack and Cody's mother having a rivalry with another singer. Yes, I am aware that he has a name, but the thing is, when it comes to the other subplots in the show, this subplot is just way too small for me to actually see the whole situation of what Zack and Cody's mother is doing. I mean, I understand that she absolutely hates him for being really despicable, but to be quite honest, if it only has limited scenes involving her and him, and then at the end, the other singer just ends up winning, it just makes most of the subplot really meaningless. I understand that this is a subplot, well, the other character hates the other character, but the other character likes the other character, but in all honesty, this subplot doesn't lead to anywhere. Granted, I haven't watched all the episodes from the first season, but if this is literally the only time we get to see Zack and Cody's mother's rival and nothing else afterwards, I honestly think that this subplot really does nothing but just to extend the episodes one time. I mean, it's not bad, but compared to other subplots I've seen, this wasn't really necessary. Besides, it will probably be very interesting to actually see Cody's mother recognizing the similarities of Tywisha in disguise, her son. Speaking of that, towards the end of the competition, Cody cannot stand it and decides to drop out so that he can have Rebecca win, but unfortunately, Zack refuses that because he wants the money so that they can buy the bikes. And to be quite honest, since that Zack is extremely greedy in this, it's really no surprise that he's gonna be in the competition in favor of Cody, or disguised as Tywisha, because he steals the outfit and wig and locks Cody into the closet. And while on stage, he changes the original plans and decides to use skateboard as a means of talent in front of the pageant people. Yeah. It's actually kind of hilarious, but considering the fact that no one questioned about the fact that this pageant lady is doing a boys stunt is honestly comedy gold, to be quite honest. Sure, it is odd, but this is a sitcom after all. So when Cody manages to get out of the closet, he attacks Zack while taking off the disguise, revealing it to everyone in the pageant contest. Both of them are disqualified, and Rebecca is not only the winner of the pageant contest, but also calls Cody and Zack a joke. Then again, she did meet Cody in his real form earlier in this episode, and he hasn't met him until the end of this episode, so it really makes sense for her to actually call not only Zack a joke, but also Cody. But she did apologize just before she leaves, while also kissing Cody. Yeah, it is mostly a predictable ending, but at the same time, I honestly think that Rebecca just didn't understand what was actually going on, and the fact that she's actually portrayed nice in this show. But afterwards, she doesn't appeal. Then again, she was doing roles in Zoe 101 and then later on Victoria, so it does kind of make sense for her to actually make one appearance in this episode in the whole show. This episode made me appreciate what this show truly is, and the haters who completely bash on this show so many times is honestly not given any credit whatsoever from this show in general. Granted, there are debates on whether haters express their feelings from this show, but at the same time, the fact that they just instantly bash on it and just instantly just go against it and beating this to the ground is honestly not something that a hater should do. But then again, haters are just out of their mind whether they make videos like these, or writing a blog about it or a comment, I don't know. My point is that this is really an episode that any other sitcom fan from Disney Channel should watch if you're new to it, that is. Granted, the sitcoms nowadays aren't as good as the ones from the last generation, but at the same time, the newer sitcoms need to give the newer generation something to understand. So I give this episode a 7.5 out of 10.
Let's get this started again.